Hi, I'm Catherine Llewellyn, the host of the podcast. You can find out all about Truth and Transcendence on truthandtranscendence.com. And you can find out all about me on beingspace.world, where you will find my online coaching offering, as well as my UK-based workshops. The Freedom of Spirit workshop for liberation and empowerment, the Pellower Radical Shift in Consciousness workshop for spiritual expansion, and transformational coaching for exploring the mind-body-spirit connection on the expansive path. You can also support the podcast by actually making a donation. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to Truth and Transcendence. You can find all our episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. Today, I'm delighted to welcome special guest Arnold Beekes, who's here today to talk about Live Your Own Life. Arnold has worked for 20 years in technology and organisational leadership, then 20 years in psychology and personal leadership, and the next 20 years, possibly, he intends to alleviate suffering with brain fitness. And his why is to reverse that people are robotised and robots are humanised. And his unique approach is based upon unconditioning. And you can find Arnold at braingym.fitness, BRAINGYM.FITNESS. So Arnold, thank you so much for coming on the show.
I like to be here, Catherine. Thanks for the invitation.
My absolute pleasure. We were actually introduced to one another by a mutual friend, which is always a lovely thing, I always think, because there's a little bit of connection there already before. And we've had a pre-call, of course, but it's really nice. There's a little bit of history there already.
Yes, absolutely. It's word of mouth. It is important in this time of being flooded with all kinds of social media posts.
Exactly. And random people appearing from nowhere and saying, you know, can I...
We want something from you.
Yes. Or the ones who come on and go, hello, how are you today?
Yeah.
What do you actually want? So we talked about live your own life, which is a really strong theme for you. Is that something, Arnold, that you've been connected to and engaged with all of your life? Or is it something that came in at some point that you can recall earlier on?
No, absolutely. The latter part of your question. And that is indicated also by the introduction, which said I had 20 years in a corporate environment and 20 years trying to figure out who I am. And now hopefully the next 20 years to help other people what I figured out. So the first 40 years of my life, I've been living someone else's life. And that's not unique to me, unfortunately, because if I would have been the only one, I'm totally convinced the world would be a different place, but it's not. Because what I say is that from the moment we are born, other people try to put on us what they expect from us, the life they want us to live. So from the moment you're born, you're a baby. When is Catherine a good baby? When you do exactly what your parents tell you to do. Yeah, so it's everything you're doing fine. You get a small kid, whatever. You're still, when are you a good kid? When you do what your parents tell you to do. Then you go to school, to primary school. When are you a good student? When you do exactly what your teacher tells you to do. So you live the life of your teachers.
Yeah.
Then you go to high school. Same story with the teachers. Yeah, you got to do exactly what the teacher tells you to do. Maybe you go to church or some like institution. When are you a good member of the community? When you do exactly what the leader is telling you. Same story when you go to university or any vocational training. When are you a good part of the training when you do what the teacher tells you. When you're at university, when you exactly do what your professor tells you to do. Then the big thing, you start to work. Most likely for someone else, so you're an employee. As an employee, when are you a good employee? When is your boss satisfied with Catherine? When you do exactly what your boss tells you to do. So by the time we are 20, 25, the only thing what we have learned is to meet expectations from these other people. We have actually living the life of those people. And for a lot, if not most people, that will continue until you die. That was for me the case until I was 40. And then started my process like, I want to try and discover myself. Who am I? What do I want? What other things are there to learn and grow and interest and be inspired by? Huge shift. Yeah? So that's what I'm ever since trying to do is instead of living the life mostly by my father, by teachers, by bosses, by society. No, now I'm living my own life. And like I said, unfortunately, I'm not unique in that because many, many people are doing that. So that shift, which for me happened at 40, I wish it happened when I was 10. Yeah? um, is something which really, really impacted me. So that shift from living someone else's life towards living your own life, I call that from fitting in to flying out.
Yes, I saw that on your website. I thought that was a very interesting way to put it.
Yeah.
Flying out. Could you say a bit more what you mean by that?
Is letting go, because all those other people that want something from you, they put kind of chains on you. They want to keep you down. In Dutch, I am Dutch. We have a saying that they don't want you to be above average. They want you to be totally average in everything. So even if you tend to go out, whoop, they pull you down. So that's why I use flying out as like I'm throwing away the change. I'm throwing away what I call the straitjackets. Like we're full of straitjackets, all of us. But in a straitjacket, you cannot perform. You cannot be ultimately who you are. You cannot be your best self when you're in a straitjacket. I ask people because last summer there were the Olympics in Paris with all these athletes. Then I asked people and I said, how many of these athletes were wearing a straitjacket? And they look at me like, oh, is that a strange question, Arnold? Yeah? It's like, of course not, nobody. I said, no, not in even one type of sports? Or no, nobody who won a gold medal got a straitjacket. So why are you wearing a straitjacket then?
Crafty. Oh no. So you don't pull any punches, Arnold, when you're talking to people about this. You don't, which is fair. Do you know the expression pulling punches?
No.
Okay, it's an English. I think it's English expression. If you say you don't pull any punches, so pulling a punch means you raise your fist to give somebody a punch, but before you hit the person, you pull back. So if you pull your punches, it means you hold back from really giving the person the strong message. So if you don't pull your punches, it means that you give the strong message without apology.
Well, number one, I see no reason if I have to apologize if it's the truth. And the other part is what a lot of things which are happening is the sugarcoating and making it seem simpler than it is, and making it easy and without effort. It's not. It's tough. And that's why I give people, well, in America, they call me candid. It's like, I just say it like it is. Because in any other way, it doesn't help you.
Yes. And at the same time, you don't have a sort of, how can I put it? Critical energy about you in the way that you say that. You look and sound very good natured, so it sounds like when you're saying that to somebody, you're saying it to them as a contribution to be helpful rather than to criticize them. Is that fair to say that?
Absolutely, because I just explained that I did the same thing for 40 years. So it's like, I know where you are, and I know where you're coming from. So I'm totally not criticizing at all. If there's anything I criticize, it's our society and our education system and our upbringing, yeah, which is totally lousy and created us all in such a bad situation, which is kind of exploding at the moment. So, oh, I was there, and even you might say to a certain extent, in a tougher environment than most people. So that is why but yeah, I say that to people to help them, to wake them up and to see it like, hey, it's possible to do something else.
Yes, I think that's really, really important. And it also raises for me the idea that in order to be able to say things like that to people, what you're suggesting there is that in order to be able to say something like that to people, you have to be able to acknowledge your own relationship with it, your own relationship with your own straitjackets that you've had in the past.
I've currently identified 33 different straitjackets, and I had them all.
Whoa. Okay, tell us one of them. Tell me one I might not have thought of.
Responsibility shift. What is happening, and I see it here every day, is what our governments are doing and business are doing. They're shifting the responsibilities which they have unto its citizens. Let me give you two examples, one from the, let's say, government perspective, and the other one from a business perspective. From a government perspective, is like, now when you buy a bottle of water in the supermarket, you get to pay money to return the plastic bottle, but you got to return the plastic bottle. Instead of telling to the companies, say, why don't you're only allowed to put water in a glass bottle.
I understand. Yeah. So you're making the general public responsible for correcting something which is being actually caused by the companies.
Exactly. That's why I call it a responsibility shift. It's like, you put on to you, it's like, oh, okay, yeah. I see here literally, because here on the corner there's a supermarket. I see here people with garbage bags, with so big, all full with plastic bottles, and they're like, I gotta go there. Yeah?
Yeah.
Another example from a business perspective, which a lot of people will recognize, is dealing with stress. So what do businesses do? Most businesses these days, and that's already for a long time, are full of stress, because they want you to do more and more with less people, and faster results, and well, now with all these communication devices, they can make you work 24/7. So it's like pushing stress. And then it's like, if you got difficulty dealing with that stress, they say, Catherine, you should follow a resilience training.
I see. So in other words, they're making the employees responsible for changing themselves so that they can cope with the punitive conditions.
Yes.
Yeah, I see that. I see that. And it just reminds me, I was living in a little town in Somerset in the UK, and I went for a walk and I bumped into a friend, and this friend is all about sort of eco and looking after the planet and stuff like that. And we wandered into Tesco, which is a large supermarket over here in the UK. And he got in this conversation with the woman at the till. And this woman, her job was to type in everything we bought and take our money. That was her job. He started lecturing her about plastic bags and about how bad it is that the supermarket uses plastic bags and plastic containers, as if she was responsible for that, which she was not responsible for that. She had nothing to do with it. And she was trying to be polite, but this was basically almost like she was being given a punishment for something she had not done wrong herself. She was just earning some money to supplement the income at home to feed the children. And I asked him about it when we left. I said, well, what do you think you're going to accomplish by criticizing that woman for the fact that her employer uses these plastic bottles and so on? He said, I'm trying to raise awareness. But he couldn't say anything else about what result that was going to accomplish in his idea.
You could even say that he shifted responsibility from himself towards that lady.
Yeah.
Because he could have said, can you give me the name of the supermarket manager? Because I see so much plastic. I want to talk with him about it.
Yes. Exactly.
So it's a beautiful example, and it shows that we think it's normal. We shift responsibility to someone else. We let someone else solve the problem which we created.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a connection between that shifting of responsibility, and you said that's one of the straitjackets. So how is that then? Well, I can imagine why that is a straitjacket in my own mind, but would you explain to me why you call that a straitjacket?
Because it is unfair judgment about you being stressed out in an organization which is lousily organized. And it limits you because you cannot even say, like, hey, I got too much work. I cannot finish this in due time. You need to give me a week more.
Right, so it shuts me down, in other words. It stops me being able to communicate.
And it makes you feel, oh, I'm not a good employee. And if I show that I'm stressed, maybe I will be kicked out.
Yes. I think I understand. It's a very good example. It reminds me of something I'm a lot of people I know, and I include myself, run workshops, open workshops. You know, where we advertise it, and if people want to come, they book and they come along. And sometimes it gets booked full, and sometimes it doesn't get booked with enough people, and you have to cancel it. And I was talking with a friend earlier today about the piece of programming that British people have in their heads, which says, if not many people book on my workshop, I'm wrong. I've done something wrong, which isn't actually true. It's a piece of programming. And I'm wondering if maybe that's another of your straitjackets.
Absolutely. It is, if you look at kind of a common denominator, is that a lot of these straight, if not all of them, is that I think I'm not good enough. It's my fault. Which is easy because you shift it onto someone else. But that's the reason, Catherine, I haven't met anyone in my life who doesn't feel, and it's not even deep inside, that they're not good enough.
And how interesting that you're saying that the the shifting of blame or responsibility into somebody else is coming from a place of I'm not good enough. So for someone looking in from outside, they may not see that. What they see is I'm shifting responsibility onto somebody else. But you're saying what's triggering that and causing me to do that is me thinking I'm not good enough.
Yeah, I will be judged. It's like, oh, I should bring my plastic bottles, otherwise I'm not a good citizen.
Yeah.
Huh?
So do you think that feeling of I'm not good enough is an inevitable result of living the life that you think you're expected to live? Or do you think it's the other way around?
It is one of the main tools which people make you conform and obey. If I want to control you, if I want you to do exactly what I tell you, I constantly give you the feeling that you're not good enough.
Right. So you're saying that the feeling of being not good enough will then encourage me to try to conform. Do you think that that conforming for many, many years will also make me feel like I'm not good enough?
200%. Because and behind that is fear.
Fear of what?
Fear of loss, fear of loss of everything in your life. Yeah. And that's what people are using, consciously or subconsciously. So every time they create in you the fear, and you're like, ooh, if I don't do what they tell me to do, it's like, I will lose my job. I won't get a promotion. They won't like me. I won't get a present. My partner will leave me. All these things, you're like, ooh, I better say what they tell me to do.
Yeah. I see that, and I recognize aspects of it in my own life. Although I think I tended to be the child and the adolescent and the young adult who would not do what I was told. But I think there's another type of conformity, which the rebel conforming as well, isn't there?
I recently read a quote in one of the best books I ever read, and it's about that rebellion conforms that you're still within the system.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, I didn't realize that for a long time. And then eventually I thought, hold on, the more I'm resisting something or rebelling against it, the more I'm actually
Confirming the model.
Yeah, confirming the model. So the rebellion is actually, and when I was younger, being the rebel was very fashionable. There was certain dress code that went with it. And you had your hair a certain way, and you might wear, extra eyeliner. The whole thing was a sort of romantic image of being the rebel. But actually, of course, that's another whole conforming thing. A whole group of people who are the rebels, and they all look exactly the same.
Yeah, and you're still acknowledging the system.
Yes, yes. So, if you don't mind me asking, what happened when you were about 40 that facilitated new direction?
Yeah, of course you can ask. The main thing, what happened is I lost my job. I got a divorce. My father died, and I had no home.
So, not many things happened then.
Yeah, so all in the same time period.
Wow.
So that shows, and I can laugh about it now, that I needed a big, you call it the punch. It's like I needed a big punch to get out of my fitting in situation, and a wake up call is like, I need to change something.
Yeah. Well, at least, thank goodness you woke up instead of just going, sliding down into an abyss of, apathetic misery.
Yeah, or worse.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Well, I'm grateful that happened. I'm sure all your clients you've had since then are grateful that you responded in that particular way instead of going, oh, right, that confirms that the world is hell, and everybody hates me. So what am I going to do? So it's you were saying, or rather I said at the beginning, that you then spent 20 years in psychology and personal leadership. Did you actually go off and study psychology formally in some way?
I didn't study it formally, but I dare say that by studying it for 20 years, you know much more than an average psychology student. I read every self-help book in the world. I have actually a lot of friends who are psychologists. So I studied reading articles, books, going to workshops, everything around that. Then I found that psychology didn't provide all the answers, so I started studying neuroscience in the same way, using especially podcasts, videos, articles, everything, neuroscience. Provides part of the answers, and now I'm more into consciousness, mythical things. The basically my quest, what I call, what other people give different name, but I call it quest. I like that word.
I do.
How the invisible drives the visible.
It's very nice. That's one of my favorites too. Yes. And is there anything that you're doing at the moment or exploring or learning or engaged with that is what most people might find particularly unusual?
Well, a lot of people think I'm totally unusual, but given the
You're individual because you are, you are living your own life, which of course immediately makes you much more unique and individual than if you.
absolutely, yeah, yeah. There's a saying from Osho is that it takes the greatest courage to be an individual in this world.
Mm, yeah.
Hmm?
And I think I don't know if it was Oscar Wilde or Bernard Shaw who said, don't try to be anybody else because they're all taken.
Yeah, yeah. And that's one of the parts which I help people, but they got to do it to themselves, is to show them that they are unique. Yeah? Each person is unique. Catherine is unique. There's no other Catherine in the world.
Thank goodness.
Well, we can have a session about that. Yeah. But the other thing is like, because again, in our upbringing and education system, we're taught to everything be the same as everyone else.
Yes.
Yeah. And by saying you're unique, but doesn't mean you feel and that you understand what it is and what is unique about you. Huh? And so it's that is really crucial for people to understand.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yes, because we can get the idea, we know we're unique, but that doesn't mean we necessarily understand our magnificence, the magnificent aspects of who we are. I often find when I talk to people that the most exceptional aspect of themselves is very often the aspect they most disregard. Because to them, it is almost background scenery because it's always been there. So they no longer value it.
Yeah, you phrase it. Your attention is absolutely the same as what I'm saying. Is that the things which go so naturally that it looks like it doesn't cost you any effort.
Yes.
Huh? You're doing these things. It's like one of those things is coaching in me, and the other one is innovation. I've never done one course in innovation. I recently said, "Oh, I never read a book either." So I read 2 books, and they're totally lousy. But it's like, but I was like, that's just part of me, who I am.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And very often that part that is just who I am, we often don't value that very much because we think, well, I didn't have to work for it. I didn't have to make an effort for it. And everyone else around is going, yes, but it's amazing. Keep doing it. We like it.
Yeah, yeah. But that is why we should look at the things which go effortless.
Mm.
Us.
Yes, absolutely. 100%. Now that's counterintuitive in a way, because I think some people, when they think about live your own life, they just imagine, oh God, it's going to be this whole effort of disentangling myself from all the conforming and letting go, and it's going to be lonely and painful and the chill wind blowing through my life, whereas actually it's not like that though, is it? Would you like to tell us a bit about what it's so for you? You've experienced not living your own life quite thoroughly. You've done a thorough study of that, and you've now done a thorough study living your own life. So what's the difference for you in terms of what your life feels like to you?
The essence is that, and again, in my time, it was at least 40 years. It was driven by fear. It was like always afraid that my father would be angry, that my boss would not be satisfied, that yes, all these things is like, oh, I must perform and to do something good. So it's a feeling of negativity. Yeah, if you have constant, as the how you call it, slumbering fear, that limits you. I want to come back to the Olympic athletes with or without a straitjacket. If the moment they start to think is like, oh, I might not win, they will not win. So the shift for me came is like, I'm no longer afraid to be me. I wouldn't say 100%, but 95%. I don't care what other people think or do with me because I know my intention is good. I've helped a lot of people throughout my life, and I continue doing so, and I do it in my way, and that's it. And I try to live my life as best as possible, so I live more from opportunity and contribution rather than oh, I might be doing something wrong. No, I'm trying and learning all the time. I still am. I still feel that I'm kind of a pupil. Yeah, it's like it's so much to learn and understand about our life, this world, everything, what's going on. So it's like, yeah, but I try things and I grow and I try and I grow and I fail and I grow and I fail and I grow and that's what makes my life interesting.
Exactly. And it sounds like a lot less fear. That's very appealing, because I think sometimes as well, people think that stepping out of the conformist straitjacket and living much more free, I would call it living more free, and you're saying flying out. I think to those of us who haven't fully embraced that or who've only just touched it and not really fully engaged with it, can think that sounds scary. But the way you're describing where you are now, it's a time of less fear.
Yeah, because Catherine is unique and Arnold is unique. So what should they fear them?
Yeah.
There's
But
nobody.
it's not the same as feeling it though, is it? So, I mean, when you describe it, you, like I said before, you sound very at home in the experience you're in now. How long do you think it took you from the waking up to the point where you started to feel like, actually, I am actually living my own life for the most part now?
I didn't call it like that, but that is what I consciously try to do. Is like I very quickly, because I was laid off and I get a coach who's a young man actually. He's a longtime friend and he was talking about spirituality and emotions and all those things. And I was in a very tough corporate environment and I'm like, what's he talking about? I have no clue. So, but well, that's also by nature. I'm hugely curious. So I'm like, well, and I was a hot shot in the corporate world and I had positions and everything. And he was talking about things. I'm like, I thought I knew a lot, but when I hear all these things, and it's not a lot. It's like, I didn't know these things. So I was like, I want to find out.
Right. It sounds like
the case, although I'm moving, like I said, in different directions, but I'm still like, and to answer a question which you asked me 10 minutes ago, is like, what are you studying right now? Is like, I'm focusing on the heart brain. We actually have three brains, the head, the heart, and the gut. I'm now, for a couple of reasons, really studying the heart brain, but also I want to live more from my heart myself. Yeah, so that's how I work, because it's curious, different by my own challenges and problems and everything. And once I think I get a little bit of a feeling and experience, then I try to help other people with it.
Wonderful. Absolutely wonderful. Love it. So what sort of work, what sort of work are you doing at the moment that helps people?
Well, it's mainly called brain fitness. It's a new category in marketing terms. It's something which, as far as I know, and the way I do it, didn't exist. So I'm literally putting that out in the world. And well, I ask people, you know what body fitness is? Yes, of course, Arnold, we know what body fitness is. You go to the gym, or I understand that movement, exercise is important for my body. Yeah. And whether you play tennis, whether you go walk your dog, whether you play football, it doesn't matter. It's like people understand that you need to keep your body regularly active. Let me put it like that. What do you do for your brain? I would argue mostly nothing after the age of 20, 25. When you have your first upbringing in the educational system, which makes your brain very active. Why is it very active? Because they're trying to change someone who is unique into a person who's the same as everybody else. That's why it takes 20, 25 years.
And also because you have to keep doing things that are nothing to do with learning. You know, when people homeschool their kids, they can get the whole curriculum done in the mornings by the halfway through the year, because they're just focusing on it properly and not doing all sorts of other things that are nothing to do with the learning.
Well, basically, it's indeed is not learning, is memorizing.
Yeah.
And why is it taking so much time? Because they want to make you into an obedient slave, in a conformist person. And everybody's creative, everybody's unique. So that's why we need 20 years to make you totally take away that feeling.
Luckily, it doesn't always work.
Yeah, but there are always bugs in the system. Yes. Yeah.
Luckily, a lot of people kind of break free, don't they? And
Yeah.
so do you work with people individually or with groups, or how are you?
Well, like I said, I was my biggest guinea pig and still am for everything. So I'm constantly changing and updating and upgrading and learning. Then I applied it in my one-on-one coaching. I'm coaching people for this year 50 years.
Wow.
And seeing what happens in the world with what they call mental health, but it's basically mental dis-ease.
Mm-hmm.
It's got nothing to do with mental health, just like healthcare's got nothing to do with healthcare. It's sick care. Huh? So I see there is mental dis-ease industry. Well, we could have a whole session about that, but it's awful. It's terrible, I tell you. And I had it from personal experience recently, because I had some PTSD problems, which they said, which apparently was not because of a car accident. I had a sister with depression and a mother with dementia, which I both had to take care of. So I was there in the system and dealing with the system. It's terrible. It doesn't work. It's completely obsolete. But those provided me the incentive is to create brain fitness. And I realized by just doing my one-on-one coaching is not going to have an input which is large enough.
Not
So
going to reach enough people.
Yeah, it's limited, although every person counts, but that's why I developed now a training where I can at the same time train more people.
Wonderful. I'm delighted to hear it. I think it's such a good thing to do, such a good idea, especially as we're living so much longer now as well. I think people suddenly realize, oh my God, we're living longer. I'd better take a bit more care of my body. Otherwise, the last 20 years, I won't be able to walk. So to look after my body. And I think now, more people are realizing this brain fitness idea because, okay, maybe the last 20 years I can walk now, but can I actually remember anything or use my brain? So
Yeah, and a lot of people get that experience now because I spoken to a lot of people where they got children who were 16, 17 with anxiety, depression, burnout. So they got children, they know that. Probably they got their parents who get dementia or Alzheimer's. And so they're starting to realize there's something not really good. Yeah.
So if people want to find you and take advantage of some of what you're offering and join you on the ride as you keep evolving what you're doing, they can go to braingym.fitness.
Correct.
So excellent. That's really good. So I'd like to ask you a few more questions before we wind up. And I will just say, honestly, it's so enjoyable talking to you. It's really interesting, your perspective. And I love how you put it. So simply and so direct and so grounded in your own experience, of being in the straitjacket and then going, what am I doing wearing a straitjacket? And then moving into another mode. So wonderful. So some of the people who listen to this podcast are people who would consider themselves to be leaders of one sort or another, whether it's leaders in their own lives or whether it's formal leaders, in business or in community or spiritual leaders even, or even political leaders. And some of those people, I like to think most of those people are trying to be part of the solution in the world. And there's so much going on. We all, the world needs as much help as it can get, I think. Is there something you'd like to say to those people who are trying to be good leaders in their own lives and for other people in relation to what we've been talking about today?
Well, I would like to ask them is to focus on strengths and the uniqueness of the people they are leading. And don't focus on the weaknesses, the failures, the mistakes, but encourage them. Yeah? The opposite of fear is love. Give them trust, give them faith in what they do. Faith, not fear. Yeah?
Wonderful advice. And we've talked about quite a lot today, Arnold. Has there been a favorite part of our conversation for you today?
For me, everything is my favorite. It's like if you would have told me, Arnold, we're 10 minutes in, I see on the clock it's not. That's the feeling I have. It's I could go on for 3 hours in this way, because this is my life. This is what I want to contribute to the world, and I want to reach as many people as possible to enable them to get out of the very challenging situation most people are,
Yeah.
and help them to get a better life for themselves. And by having a better life for yourself, you also create a better life for the people in your environment.
Beautiful. And I could very happily carry on talking to you for 3 hours as well. Maybe I'll have to invite you back on. So a final thing I want to ask you for, which is sometimes it's really nice for the listeners to take away from an episode some sort of reflection question for them to contemplate on in the coming week. I wondered if you'd like to offer something to the listeners.
Well, I would like to invite you to ask yourself and start figuring it out. What is your uniqueness?
Yeah. What is your uniqueness? Thank you. Beautiful. So, everybody, that's all for Truth and Transcendence today. You can find our other episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. Please be sure to give a thumbs up. A 5-star rating makes such a difference. Share with your friends and comment on what we were discussing today. Have a great week and I'll see you next time. And Arnold Beekes, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. It really helps if you give a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, a review, and share with your friends. If you're looking for transformational coaching or an intensive transformational weekend workshop experience, I can help with that. You can actually help the show by making a donation. Until next time, take care.